and gentlemen. I'm so glad this evening is finally here. I've been looking forward to this evening for a long time. My name is Marion Rosenberg, and I'm the founder of Universal Dream of Peace. I'm on a mission to cool down anger, global warming, and prejudice. Some people have told me that it's too broad a spectrum, that people won't take it seriously. But I believe that we can walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time. There are some simple practices we can do in our everyday life to bring all of those about. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you my two guests and hope new friends. I met them at the Gandhi Foundation meeting at a panel for nonviolence in our society. And to my left is Dr. Jamie Weiner, psychologist. I got that out with my teeth not flying. And this is Mr. Hari Lamba. He is an engineer, a mechanical engineer, and an author of a book, Rethinking Progress. And we are going to start this program with Jamie. He'll be speaking to you first, and afterwards we'll give a shot to Hari. And that's kind of the format for this evening. So thank you so much for both of you for coming here to be with me and support me through this first show. And I'm very grateful to you both. So would you take the floor?
Thank you, Marianne. I'm real honored to be part of your first show. And, you know, when we talk about it being a broad topic, when we talk about anger, prejudice, and global warming, I started to think about what ties this all together. You know, what from the point of view of a psychologist at least, holds the whole thing together for me. And I realized that there were a couple things. One, I realized that all three of them involve people not really being able to understand and see or understand who other people are, and becoming so self-focused that, you know, when they're under stress, that they can explode and be angry, that they can't begin to understand the differences between people or think about other people and appreciate, because they need the world to be like them. And even global warming is really an act of, in many ways, thinking about us as the center of the universe and what we want now as the attempt to really try as best we can just to be like spoiled kids and get what we want. Of course, when we act that way, we probably also live our lives in what I think is probably in all the years that I've been working, and I've worked in quite a range of places. I worked at Cook County Jail for 4 years. And I've worked with extremely accomplished people, helping them try to figure out how to pass on the wisdom in their lives to the next generation. And some of the things that I've noticed that really hold together for everybody I've worked with is that if they can pass down their wisdom, if they can pass down values, life experiences, traditions, that it really helps guide the next generation, and everybody wins from the process. But, and I think it's the case, that if they let the dragons inside of them, and when I talk about the dragons, what I really mean is jealousy, anger, envy, hostility, they let those things rise to the surface and run how they view the world, then we know the result. And I saw it very clearly when I worked at Cook County Jail, because at any given time at Cook County Jail there'd be 80,000 detainees. And, you know, you would listen to their stories about whether it was murder or rape, or whether it was jumping over the L platform because they couldn't afford to get on the train. The focus was on them and what they needed at the time. And it was interesting to me because most of the time when I talked to them, they saw themselves as victims, and they wanted to talk about how hurt they felt. But underneath it all was really a lot of fear that they didn't know how to manage in any way. And so professionally, I've done a lot of thinking about that. I've done a lot of thinking about how if we could come up with an antidote to some of the fear that's there, because, you know, I would talk to people about who had committed violent acts, and you start to talk about the violent act and you listen to the rationale, and it's either that they felt threatened that something was going to get taken away from them, they felt endangered in some way, or they felt in some way that they needed to live in the world in a very guarded way, and that something was threatening their idea of being guarded, of what, you know, of their world. Their world was beginning to crack open. In many ways, that's also what I think prejudice is about. And prejudice on a broader level is when we kind of take, you know, our narrow world, we try and control it as tightly as we can control it. We're afraid to engage with others, and we therefore fear the differences between us and other people, rather than being able to engage other people, learn from other people's traditions, and be able to embrace other people in a way that really has a chance to transform the world. So for me, what I hope, you know, people get out of watching this show is I hope they get the idea, first of all, about the importance of being able to hand down wisdom, of really thinking about what's important to them, what's meaningful to them, and who's meaningful to them, and begin to think about how do I engage people in order to be able to do that. Second thing that I hope people get out of watching this show is I hope they get a sense that they have some responsibility to manage their own dragons, their own fears, their own jealousy, their own envy, and to stop. Because a lot of times for people who are angry, just being able to take a step back and stop is a huge step in terms of moving forward. Because I believe if we do that, everybody's going to win, and we start going to move to that kind of world of peace that I think you dream about. That's part of what your mission's all about.
This is true. Do you, how do you see yourself in engaging people into turning on that light bulb moment, that it's something simple, that they can take their first step towards to opening up into a flower instead of being so tight and curled in the cocoon or whatever? How do you see yourself getting somebody to stop fighting the idea that they could be wrong, or just be able to let go and let a new thought in, a new feeling in, and fill that empty space or where their fear is?
I think that's tough. I think a lot of times it takes some of the you know, in my life, and you know, I'm a psychologist as well, so some of what I've done professionally is spending time with people listening. But you know, one of the things I did when I was at Cook County Jail was I developed a group model of treatment at the jail, where if they could get as far as acknowledging that their life had become somewhat trapped, and be able to see that the way they were living their life, and it seems like a very simple idea, was leading them constantly back to being in jail. And I don't mean that just in terms of the physical space of jail, but in terms of feeling trapped. You know, I think even people who are very successful can feel very trapped in terms of having a very limited idea of how they see the world. And sometimes just getting to that moment of acknowledgement is a huge step.
Is there a way that you can encourage their transformation from their problematic state to something that's hopefully get them into rehabilitation of some kind? Is there things that can be done?
Well, time is one of the biggest healers in some ways. A lot of times I think it's also being able to be with somebody in a way that they're not threatened by who you are, and that they feel that the space to be able to open up and to share, because people don't want to live in a world of fear. Even if they've done things to harm other people, if their inner experience, their inner world is a world of fear, and they have an opportunity to talk about it.
Right.
Well, what do you think of the Gandhi Foundation had sort of come to a conclusion after many different panels on discussing the nonviolence, how to bring nonviolence into our society. And they had concluded that they feel that the children are where we have to focus, and one of the children spoke from the high school, had told her story of how she was made to feel unwanted in the group and very uncomfortable. And when you hear so many things happening that are violent in our society today, about girls acting out worse than the guys in many cases. And I had just asked that young lady who was at the panel that evening, it was high school the first time it happened? She said, no, it's been happening for a long time. And so I question, if the children are acting out in such violence, and you hear about Columbine and all these things happening, and usually the question comes out, oh, they were a very quiet person. How do you get the parents and the schools and friends and relatives to reach out in a way that they begin to feel they can speak, that they're not stupid, that they're not whatever they feel, that they can't bring out the story? What's the first baby step somebody could take that the audience out there tonight might even think of, that they may have a situation they're dealing with?
When I think one of the first baby steps, I think, is for people that are around, because when I think about Columbine, for example, I think a lot about the places where violence is erupted. People in retrospect begin to think about, boy, I could have seen this coming. I knew there was something wrong with the young people who acted out violently. And a lot of times what we don't do is we don't pay attention to what the obvious is. So if we start by being aware of when we're concerned about some young person who's not, not seeming to be part of the community. And second of all, if we pay attention to when they start to operate in groups, because usually violence is not done as a single act, it's done as an act that's done with somebody else.
Okay, I'm going to go to our next guest
Great.
for a moment. And again, I've been reading only the outline of Hari's book, and so far it seems like it's very engaging and very thoughtful, but I cannot lie, I haven't read it yet. But I'm sure it's got to be very good, because he's a very thoughtful person on the society today. So would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your book when you're ready.
Yeah, Marion, again, thanks for having me here. I hope that we can have a fruitful contribution and a fruitful discussion. Some of the things Dr. Weiner was saying, I think, kind of hit home. The cooling of the anger in the world really is an important task that we need to undertake. The respect for cultural diversity, I feel, is a great first step, because if we don't learn to get along with each other as communities, we'll most probably blow each other apart. On top of that, I think when I look at being able to accommodate all the different opinions of people, I think, like Gandhi used to think, that last person is important. and that last person's opinion is important. And if people begin to feel through participatory discussion making that their opinions matter, then they will be less likely to go up and exhibit their anger, because they feel like what they're saying is significant and people will listen to them. And I think that's my model of, I would say, participatory democracy of the kind Gandhi used to talk about. The cultural diversity, respect for cultural diversity, the other end of the coin for the planet is respect for biological diversity. And that is needed for the cooling of the earth. We have all these species that are there, us included. And today I was walking around in downtown Chicago before I came here, and I was just looking around at all these beautiful buildings and technology, and the miracles of technology have enabled us to live these enormous lifestyles that we see, that we can enjoy. But we are at a point where we as a species really need to figure out whether we are going to be super consumers or whether we're going to be stewards of this earth. And so that's an important thing. The planet is like, people have made the analogy, it's like a spaceship. We only have a few miles of atmosphere above us and just a few miles of crust below us and so forth. And we are like a spaceship. We are endangering the life support systems of the planet. The planet is being overheated by burning too much fossil fuels. And so those are the kinds of things that are going on. I think the analogy is, if you're next to a factory and you have poison gas all of a sudden being emitted, you got to deal with the problem to some extent. And so this is global warming. The earth is warming up. In order to educate myself about all of this, I decided that I was going to start reading and writing, and that culminated in the book. And so the book is, in a sense, my contribution of my education, hopefully to help other people to be educated about it. And the book talks about problems and solutions relating to the environment, relating to development, poverty, debt and trade, and globalization issues, who it helps, who it hurts, are jobs lost here and jobs gained somewhere else, etc., etc. And then this is, of course, came up in the book. In the second part of the book, I put out holistic solutions regarding the rejuvenating the planet, having alternative economics and things like that. So alternative concepts. Why, in a sense, what is global warming and why should we be worrying about it? And to some extent, why do we need the kinds of, the ability to get along with each other is going to become really important in order to solve these problems, because we face enormous tasks. Now, in terms of global warming, there's enormous, the scientists early in the 90s started saying, there's possibly a problem. Then in the mid-90s, they said they feel more sure there is a problem. Now in 2001, they feel they are confirming that there is a problem of global warming. Well, what is global warming? Global warming is where we by ourselves, the fuel we burn isn't enough to create heat. But when we take the planet, you have the sunlight shining down on the planet. When it hits the atmosphere, it comes down as a certain form of light, then it gets re-emitted as ultraviolet light. And the gases in the atmosphere, like carbon dioxide, trap some heat. And so our Earth is actually about 60 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than it would be today. Otherwise, we'd be in perpetual ice age. Well, if we allow these gases through the burning of fossil fuels and other activities to build up too much, what we're doing is a big multiplier effect. All the sunlight that falls on us gets trapped, and so we get this immense buildup of heat in the atmosphere. The planet is thought of as a living organism, and now this organism is starting to heat because of what we're doing. Now, why should we worry about it? There would be more severe hurricanes like Katrina. They'll become stronger and more frequent. We're going to have tornadoes possibly that are increasing ferocity. Stronger and stronger floods, the type of Mississippi floods that we had, where the jet stream got locked in a certain position, and global warming had all this tremendous moisture coming in, and this moisture had to go somewhere, and it dumped it right in the Mississippi Delta. And so all of these things, some regions will have drought. We have forest fires taking place, and the cycle of forest fires, those drought areas having stronger and stronger forest fires will become stronger, and they'll in turn will give out carbon dioxide to the atmosphere and all that. And the favorable agricultural climate will shift from US to Canada, and all these things will take place. Tropical diseases, whoever thought about having West Nile virus in Chicago? Well, we've had a number of cases of West Nile virus. We're going to have malaria, we're going to have dengue fever, we're going to have these, which are tropical things, which 20, 30 years back when I came to the country, that was unheard of.
I would like to interrupt you for just a moment,
Sure.
please. What do you think are some simple steps in everyday life that people can do to slowly make a difference? For those that even accept that global warming is a fact. And what about the people who don't believe it and they want the government to do everything? What's your answer to those people, if you have one?
Firstly, personally, you've got to be convinced, and there's simple steps that you can do in your personal lives. There's no rocket science to it. There's personal steps that I'm doing I can talk about. We unfortunately have to solve the problem globally, because if one nation is producing lots of carbon dioxide and the other nation isn't, one nation can make up for the others. And so
we're doing that right here. We're 30% worse than the rest of the world.
Right. We need global cooperation ultimately. Now, personally speaking, here are the kinds of things I've started to do. I have a solar electric system, small one, installed in my home, so I'm not creating fossil fuels somewhere else. I'm driving a hybrid electric car. I insist on nothing but the most efficient appliances. I have electric lamps of a saving nature. I try to economize on the trips that I make in terms of being conscious of what sort of fossil fuels I'd be burning. So those are some of the personal steps that you can do. Number two, a higher level, improve the energy efficiency of your home, and start doing things like that. There's energy efficiency is like a golden mine waiting for the United States, because we waste so much energy compared to the rest of the world. To do the same tasks, we waste a lot of energy. So there's a tremendous opportunity there. But globally, nationally, community-wise and nationally and globally, there's lots of things that we can do. One of the simple things in our communities, our building codes could be modified so as to insist on energy efficiency. The building codes could encourage renewables like solar energy. There are nations that are doing that. Solar roofs in terms of hot water and electricity. So there you can encourage better transportation modes, and ultimately you could even but what you can do is go to City Hall and encourage your city to start doing these things, and then encourage the state to similarly start doing these types of activities. At the next step, you can go to the national level. And the national level insists that the government does the regulations, the taxes, the incentives, the investment, to make sure that the US desperately needs to go through what I call an energy transition. We need that energy transition. We can make it. We have enough knowledge. We have the technology. It's all out there. And so we need to tell our Congress people, we need to tell our representatives that, listen, this is the time we got to act. We got to come up with programs to cut our carbon dioxide emissions, at the same time reduce our dependence on foreign oil. We can do all those things at the same time. For the first time, it made sense for me financially. The first time I've been in this environmental issue for maybe 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden it makes sense, because by having a hybrid car, I'm saving money every time I drive.
I hate to interrupt you. I've been given the signals, but if people wanted to reach you both at your websites, would you be able to get to people who contact you who are interested in giving them suggestions as individuals?
Absolutely,
How to
absolutely,
start?
absolutely,
You as well.
absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you. And I do want to take just a moment. My daughter, Laura, gave me an email the other day. It came from the Goldie Hawn made a speech for the National Press at National Press Conference, and it had to deal with healing. The words can heal. And she told a story about a young girl who was 10 years old and was so threatened by bullies in her class, didn't feel she could talk to her parents, that they would think everything she had to say was just foolish. So she said nothing. Unfortunately, they faced something that no one should have to face, and that was their daughter hung herself. So what I'm asking you to do is to think about some kind words that you can say to your children, to your family, and don't use words such as you're stupid, you're fatty, you're an infidel, the new word for war thinking, and just let people know that they're valued, and be a lighthouse so they can come to you in safety and tell you when they're in trouble or feeling down low. So we can give you a website. You will see that on our screen from Goldie Hawn's speech if you want to hear more of it, and it's called thewordscanheal.org. And I hope you will take the opportunity. Her speech is quite incredible. And I want to thank both my guests for being here this evening. I think we could have done an hour show with all the information you could have both given us. And I thank you for sharing and for caring. And Universal Dream of Peace wants you to look into their website. That's me, www.workforworldpeace.org. And I believe that in the beginning, in Genesis, God told us we should be good to each other and kind and truthful and take care of the earth, water, sky, and everything that walks, swims, crawls, or breathes. And that was our plans that were given us in the very beginning. So yes, Jamie, I agree with you, and this is just great. So I hope we can have a meeting on our own.
That'd be great.
Sure.
And see where we can come together on some thoughts and maybe take some real more baby steps out there and help people to learn what they can do and what we can do. Yeah, I know I'm still learning. And
I'm still learning too, so.
Well, no way. That's what I tell people, I'm imperfect, but as imperfect human beings, we got to learn how to come together and do things together, and we can do it.
Live with the differences.
Right, we got to respect those differences,
We're all God's children.
Yep.
Different sizes, shapes, colors, different things, but that's okay.
At the same time, we need to, develop a feeling of human family kinds of things, and also expand our concept of human family to our other species, our brother and sister species. Right.